From tornadoes to hurricanes, blizzards, and everything in between, you're listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. The Stormfront Freaks are former television meteorologist Mark Massaro, atmospheric science graduate and skywarn storm spotter Brady Harris, digital meteorologist and weather producer on the Weather Channel app Dina Knightley, former on-camera meteorologist at the Weather Channel Kim Cunningham, Emmy-winning storm chaser and photographer Chris Sanner, and I'm your announcer and Skywarn Network coordinator Mark Johnson. Now, here's the moderator of the Stormfront Freaks podcast, Skywarn storm spotter and chaser Phil Johnson.
Hey, welcome to the most entertaining weather podcast on your listening and viewing device. Of course, this is the Stormfront Freaks podcast. If you happen to be a first-time listener, we always want to thank you for checking us out. Be sure to go to stormfrontfreaks.com and check out the library of previous shows that we have with famous guests from the weather industry. But tonight, everybody, this is our historic 50th episode, the Big 50. And here's why this is historic for us, because we are a bi-weekly show. So if we were weekly, of course, this would be our 100th episode. We would be doing this for 100 weeks, but we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, which is crazy to think.
Wow.
Isn't that nuts? That is nuts.
Yeah.
But episode 50, we could not have a better guest to celebrate than our senior research scientist of NOAA's Severe Storms Laboratory. We've got the legendary Harold Brooks is with us tonight. And we'll also be discussing the future use of and I got to elaborate here because I still have on the script last week's discussion. But we're going to be talking about the National Weather Service and whether or not they should be getting into media. You know, they're half dipping their toe a little bit into social media and web pages, but they're trying to stay away from video and streaming stuff. But we're going to talk about, should they go all in? Or should they be all out, or should they just keep kind of tipping their toe in the water? We'll talk about that. And stick around, as we're certainly not short of weather fools this week. And we, of course, we usually have some WX resources to share with you. Tonight, I have got a bombshell announcement right here and right now. This is going to be a huge announcement for you guys. We've been teasing this on social media, but we're excited to introduce a new partnership with Helicity Designs. Now, if you're a weather geek, you know who Helicity Designs is, right? You guys all know Helicity.
Yep. Are you serious?
Come on, Phil. Are you questioning our geekiness?
If you go to helicitydesigns.com, great stuff. They'll be listen to this. They're going to be coming up. I've been talking with Justin, very creative guy. Love what he's doing. They're going to come up with a line of exclusive Stormfront Freaks podcast merchandise, done the only way that Helicity Designs can do it. They've been teasing a little bit of that already. But I want to share tonight, to celebrate this partnership and our 50th episode, Helicity Designs has created a Stormfront Freaks podcast lightning round tour t-shirt.
Nice.
So this is awesome. It's a good old black concert tour t-shirt, Kim. You're gonna love this. It's right.
I love it. I already love it.
Your Megadeth, Metallica alley. So it's done like a concert t-shirt. So it says on the front, Stormfront Freaks, and then it says lightning round tour. And then listen to this on the back. Now, what's normally on a back of a concert t-shirt?
Cities. Right.
Yeah. All the cities of their tour. So here's what we're doing. The back of this t-shirt is going to list all of our first 50 episodes and guests that we've had on the podcast.
I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so listen to this. So Harold, you're already on the t-shirt. You're just showing up tonight. Is that unbelievable?
I could leave now and
No.
I'm just thinking, thank God you showed up tonight, because otherwise you have to redo the t-shirt.
Totally
But Dina, you're on there. Kim, you're on there. You guys were both guests at one point. So yeah, on the back of the shirt, it's got our tour of the first 50 episodes and who was on and the date that they were on there. So get this, you can go to helicitydesigns.com. You can go there right now, and you can find that awesome lightning round tour t-shirt. And get this, I'm not done. You not only can get the exclusive shirt, but as part of our agreement, our podcast listeners, which is you get an extra 5% off your entire order if you use the code FREAKS, RFEAKS. Use the code FREAKS at checkout, and you're going to get 5% off your entire order.
Nice.
Just because you're a listener. So be sure to browse their entire collection of weather-themed clothing, swimwear, shoes, accessories, and other products. They got all kinds of great stuff. And obviously, if they got weather stuff for weather geeks, that's their slogan. Just go to helicitydesigns.com, check out their stuff, use Freaks, and get our commemorative 50 episode T-shirt.
Got a little promo code too.
I know, we've made it. That's how you know
We're out there, man.
You got a promo code.
Yeah.
We got a promo code. Anyway, so check it out. They got some great stuff, and we'll be announcing more stuff as we go. But all right, so hey, it's always happy hour when we're recording Stormfront Freaks podcast. The best way to introduce our co-hosts and share our casual atmosphere is to find out what everybody's drinking. So we ask all of our listeners, hey, feel free to join us as long as you're not driving or at work, as we say. But go ahead and step up to the bar. Let's find out what you're drinking tonight. MJ's in Minnesota. What are you drinking?
Hey, good evening. My kind of my go-to beer. This is Michelob Amber Bock.
Oh, Bock.
Okay.
It's normally a fall beer, I think, isn't it?
I don't know. I drink it
spring. No, you know what it is? Bock tends to be a spring beer. Very good. Dina. Now, Dina is normally coming to us from Atlanta, but tonight we find out she's been catching the rays on the beach in Destin, Florida.
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
God.
I've been in spring break, and I hadn't drank for a couple months from that fitness program. Well, I kind of fell off the wagon on vacation. I feel like I'm on
I think she already has.
I feel like I felt like I'm in AA because it's been 72 days since my last drink.
Oh my!
So I haven't drinking now. I'm on. I don't know. I'm on a few of them.
Yeah.
I think we need to have a show called 2 Drink Minimum. You have to have a 2 drink minimum before you even start.
Although we'll make it
through
the
tonight.
show. We'll make it through the
I
show
had
better.
some beers. Now I'm on the wine, and
it's
I'm
like
mixing.
we need to have a pool bar just for Dina. All right, Brady is in Columbus. Brady, what are you drinking?
I'm having a nice red blend tonight, so it's nice and refreshing.
You're so fancy.
Aren't you so sophisticated?
I drink what's available, man. I'm at the parents' house right now. So.
Yeah. That's right.
Very good. All right, Kim. Now Kim is in Atlanta. Kim, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a local beer from the Burnt Hickory Brewery Company, right up the street from me, actually. And this is Ezekiel's Wheel. So kind of a cool, going back to the Civil War days can. So yeah,
like
real good.
dark.
Yeah, it's a pale ale. It's hoppy for a pale ale, but I usually drink the IPAs, but this is good. I like it.
Very good. All right, and then we'll go to our guest. I always say we've got a green room stocked in this digital show that we have. Harold's coming to us from Norman, Oklahoma. What are you drinking, Harold?
Iced tea.
Iced tea.
Right.
Very good. Now, I'll say this. I also want to mention Harold's at work. He's
the only
office.
sober.
Oh, no wonder.
He's going to have to finish the show for the rest of us. But let's get to our guest and give him a formal introduction. Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So Harold Brooks, he's a meteorologist and a senior scientist with the NOAA Severe Storms Laboratory, whose research is concentrated on severe convective storms and tornadoes, particularly severe weather climatology, as well as weather forecasting. He's also been elected as a fellow of the AMS, the American Meteorological Society. That was in 2010, and also the Royal Meteorology Society as well. And I know, Harold, you've gotten all kinds of awards for papers, and there's just so much I could have said in your intro, but we want to save a lot of time, I think, for just the questions and great information you have tonight. And I want to say thank you for joining us. I know you're very busy.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Welcome.
And actually tonight I'm proud to be the spouse of an Oklahoma public school teacher.
Awesome.
So
more money, hopefully.
We're having interesting times right now around here, and she and my daughter went up to the Capitol today, and they may be going back tomorrow. So
Good
for
luck.
them.
thank you.
Good luck.
Boy, they deserve it. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time out to join
You're
us
welcome.
tonight. Again, tons of questions for you, but anybody that's in meteorology, I think knows your name, has seen it on research papers, and people probably wonder, how did you get to this point? Has research always been a passion for you in convective storms, tornadoes, or climatology?
There are a lot of people I know that have that story of when they were 5 years old, they knew they were going to do weather, and that's not me. Undergraduate, I was physics and math major, and I knew I'd do science and math and all that. And I kind of stumbled into doing weather. That a previous graduate of my college had gone to a summer program at the Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York with Columbia University, and that had turned him into one of the world's black hole experts. He actually did a postdoc and lived with Stephen Hawking for 3 years.
What?
And so when I graduated, when I was getting ready for that kind of time, they said, "Hey, you ought to look at that program." And so my summer research was actually looking at the last glacial maximum climate. And I went back and did graduate work and looked at transport of volcanic aerosols in the stratosphere, and got a little tired of living up there. And I was engaged by that point to my wife, whose parents lived in Chicago, and my parents were in St. Louis. And to be honest with you, Urbana-Champaign was a really convenient place to go. And I started doing thunderstorm stuff in there at the University of Illinois with Bob Wilhelmsen, and that's kind of how it happened. 1990, I came down here. Chuck Doswell invited me to come to the lab. Said, do a postdoc for 1 year before you go off to do some faculty position, and I just haven't left.
Yeah, wow.
Fantastic.
What an intro, huh?
Hey, Harold, I have a question for you, because when I was looking at your intro, you did have climatology on there, and I'm not getting political whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
So everybody have a drink. It's just a question.
Sipping one now.
Sure.
Have 2 drink minimum, remember. But in your organization doing climatology, and then we have an administration that doesn't really believe in climate change, are you seeing any changes in your
not where I am, no, but that doesn't mean, we don't, when I do climatology, it's a lot, it's more historical and what's going on. We do some work with trying to estimate what will happen with changes potentially in severe storms, but that's a real small component, and it's actually can be easily phrased in terms of we're doing things that help us understand weather conditions for forecasting. And so we really haven't felt things. There may well be other agencies within NOAA that have, but I haven't really noticed it where I am.
I've been curious to ask you that, because I've even read articles where kids are going to start getting textbooks where no global climate change is even allowed to be mentioned.
That could be,
wow.
That could be in some states. That's a state by state basis, and I have a hard enough time understanding a lot of things that go into the education system. Understanding things like textbook selection and what the goals are is really, really hard.
Okay.
So Harold, I'm dying to know, what is your perfect day when you come into work? If you could have one day, is it a calm day? Is it when severe weather is going on? What's your perfect day when you go to work? What are you looking forward to the most?
My guess is it more than, it probably aims towards a little more towards the calm day. I like the day-to-day weather. It matters to me, but in many senses it doesn't. I look at historical stuff, and I look at trying to design forecast systems. And so just the chance to sit and think, to sit and talk to graduate students, to talk to some work colleagues about some things we've been working on is always a good thing, and not with no feeling of, well, I better be doing something else while this is going on. And just I think, to me, I tell people that one of the great things about being a scientist is that you reach the point where there are times when you know something that nobody else on the planet knows, and then your job is to tell people that. And those don't happen very often, but occasionally as you work on something, you find out, man, this is really cool, and you go tell somebody, and that's just a whole lot of fun. Those are the best days.
Oh my gosh! So let me ask you this. So, are you part of the decision making there? I imagine you probably are. But what research gets done? Is there a group of people that get together to decide what NSL is going to be researching?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I've been here a long time, and I was hired under what may in some sense be an old idea. When I arrived, Bob Maddox, who was the director then, when I came on my postdoc, said, I'm looking for the next generation of superstars to lead research at the lab, and they're going to work on important problems. And the reason the way we're going to know they're important problems is that they told us they're important because they're working on them. And now we have a lot more stuff where we do big projects. I'm involved in a small bit in one of those, but I'm sort of the last of the pretty much independent principal investigators, and I get to pick and choose about 90% of what I do.
You by yourself when you
That's
do the
nice.
research, or you got people working with you?
It depends on what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not I'm probably not real good as part of a big group. I've got two PhD students that I have right now in meteorology, and another one that I help with in geography here at Oklahoma. And one of them in particular I work with pretty closely. The other one does a lot of stuff with the SPC, so he can work with the SPC, and the one in geography does stuff with the geographers. So I tend to be much better at working with like one or two people on things, and then I guess the biggest group I'm involved with is our efforts to try to do social science with meteorology. And there's a set of folks that we met again with today that we're doing some things for a spring project that's coming in, and just that's a little bit of a bigger group. But I have a hard time. If you gave me 10 people, I don't know what I'd do, because that's just not. I mean, that's not my style. That's a lot harder thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Harold, I'm dying to know, because along that lines of the social science, I was just at work yesterday or 2 days ago. There was a tornado warning in our county, and everyone at work just continued to work. So I'm dying to know, what do you find people most respond to when it comes to stuff like that?
Well, I mean, there's sort of the standard stuff we do in that we know from any warning of any kind of disaster, and a lot of it has to do with trusted messengers, but it's difficult to pick those things out, a priori as to what individual will respond to. We know that, I mean, to me, one of the things that I really love about the tornado warning problem as an intellectual exercise is that it's a real example of decision making under uncertainty with great time pressure. And that occurs at the forecaster scale, at the communicator scale, and at the user scale. And there aren't many problems like that. I mean, emergency room doctors, firefighters have to deal with decision making under uncertainty with a lot of time pressure, but not to have it at the information creator, information pass along, and the information user stage. And we really don't understand how that system works very well, even yet.
Wow.
So since you've been living there for such a long time, you have, I'm sure, have seen tornadoes.
A few.
Yeah, just a few. Oh my gosh. Has your house been hit by one?
No.
That, but, okay.
And nothing actually even particularly close. Probably the closest thing to our house is maybe 3 miles. Well, no, sorry. I was out of town. Sorry. Let me go back. I was out of town for 1 mile away. That actually, my wife's school, when she went out to the parking lot, there were telephone poles down across the street.
Oh gosh.
And it actually hit it did hit the high school where my youngest child was at the time, although it was relatively weak. But I was out of town. So I got a lot of grief for that.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Isn't that a problem? Is when you're into weather, whether you're a chaser, storm spotter, meteorologist, researcher, whatever it is, when there's bad weather in the area, you're probably not sitting at home.
Well, and
that's sad.
Well, the thing about this was I was actually refereeing a volleyball tournament in Dallas. And,
so it wasn't weather related.
No, not at all. Not at all weather related. But I'm on the referee stand, and we don't, the phone is in my pocket, but I'm not going to obviously answer the phone while in the middle of a match. But my phone is going bananas with messages.
I bet.
And it's one of those, I wonder what's going on. And I get off the stand, and the first message is from my wife, at Whittier in shelter with kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's not a very good thing. But that was in hindsight, that's an amusing time.
Yeah.
Right.
Because as the wife, I'd be like, pick up the phone.
Well, she knows. I mean, she knows when I'm reffing. Obviously, it's all she can do is send a message, and I'll check it after the match. So.
All right, I got 2 questions for you. The first question is, Harold, what was your connection with the movie Twister?
Okay.
And how were you involved?
Well, that's 2 questions right there, right?
No, it's the same thing. I tend to do that.
Okay.
I tend to
3,
turn
maybe
the
4.
question.
Yeah. I'm what is officially referred to as a technical consultant. My name appears in the credits right before no animals were harmed.
Nice.
The big things that I did or we actually did storm safety for cast and crew, because you have a whole lot of people that are going to be outside in Oklahoma in April and May, and that's and many of them had never been around storms, and so this was something that they needed to know. Did a little bit of talking with some people about lines in the show or in the movie. Like Helen Hunt called. We had a 3-hour conversation about a lot of her script. She promised some things would be said that she said, I can't promise they'll make it into the final cut, but the first take will be that way. And at least one of them didn't.
Like Harold Brooks told me.
There was an inside joke with some chasers back then that she said she promised she would get the first line, and it didn't make the final. It didn't make the final thing. We hosted Bill Paxton. He was actually in our operations center for Vortex for the first day when we got our first tornado of the field project, and then went out with our field teams on April 19th, 1995, which was the day of the Oklahoma City bombing, and they actually went through his hometown of Weatherford, Texas, while they were out chasing with our people. And I did a lot with the art department coordinator, Carla Nimick, who was one of those people who tries to make the set look real. They actually filmed the opening scene of the movie twice. Once was what showed up on film, which was out in the field. The other was actually in a classroom. And so I did equations, a skew T chart, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
Yes, it was a convective weather class, and so we had all of that up on the board, and that unfortunately got cut. And I also got a lot. I got also
QT.
Yeah. When Kathy Kennedy, who was the executive producer at the time, she was Spielberg's partner in the movie business, came by, I'd give her coffee. That was the other thing. She'd come up and steal coffee out of my coffee maker.
So I lied. A sub question to that before I get to my second. So shut up. So was there a time while they were filming that there was any serious weather in the area that you had to inform them of?
No, I didn't inform them. I mean, we did have, actually, all of the cast except for Helen and Carrie Elwes actually did go out with our vehicles on April 19th, 95, as part of the Vortex Field Project, and just went out to see what was going on. That turned out to be an incredibly difficult day to operate because of the bombing in the morning, and communication to the field was very difficult because we just lost a lot of phone coverage because of all of that going on with downtown. But they went out and did that. But we didn't have anything that really was, that I remember, that was anything really bad while they were around.
All right. So second question. So the Severe Storms Lab, can you tell us what are some of the things you guys are working on to make the lives of the average person better when it comes to severe weather?
Yeah. Well, the mission of the National Severe Storms Laboratory is to do research to improve the warnings and forecast of severe weather. Our big projects right now, the thing we've probably been known for historically forever, has been radar development. Doppler weather radar is a lab invention, or at least it turns out its application, the big part of its applications. Same thing with polarimetric radar. That was basically developed seriously here at the lab. We're working right now on what we think may well be the next generation of radar, phased array radar, which has the advantage of no moving parts and can collect a lot. It essentially is an electronically steered antenna that they've been using like on naval ships for a long time. But we're going to try to bring that in, and it can do it has all kinds of applications, because you can do weather and track aircraft at the same time with the same platform, and you can interrogate small parts of the space while you're still paying attention to everything going on. So that's one big project. Another one is what we call facets, forecasting a continuum of environmental threats. And I do a tiny bit with this, which is essentially trying to, if you think right now, we put out forecast products in a few stages for severe weather. We got the convective outlooks that cover a day and are issued on a daily basis. We have watches, and we have warnings, and we do some other intermediate products, but not real seriously. But that we're trying to figure out, we know lots of things, information changes all the time. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can create and communicate that information to users continuously, and have information that flows fairly seamlessly, and that one of the big challenges we have in trying to communicate weather is we know a lot more than we're actually able to tell people in the short amount of time we ever get their attention span. But we also know there are potentially sophisticated users, like school districts maybe, or emergency managers, or hospital groups that have large safety responsibilities that can use a lot more information than what we give to the general public. If we gave all that information to the general public, it probably wouldn't help them respond very well. But if I can tell an emergency manager, you may have tornadic conditions in a couple of hours from now, they may be able to start to deploy resources. And that's a long-term goal of, in some sense, improving the value of the forecast that we create by, in some sense, almost just changing and refining more the way we put information out.
And what about the Vortex project in the Southeast?
Vortex Southeast is that's another thing that the lab is not. That's not just ours. So we're heavily involved in it. Vortex Southeast it's different than any field project that's ever been done, in that we don't really have a fixed base that's where we have people at or even close to it, so that we have to figure out when to send people to go there. So Eric Rasmussen, who's in some sense in charge of the project, does that. But the real big thing that's different about Vortex Southeast is the social science aspect. We have people who are involved with when there are weather events. What do emergency managers do? How do people respond? How do they use information? How do even emergency managers think about their job? Especially given the wide variety of emergency managers, because there's some places that have really sophisticated full-time people that weather is their passion, and and in other places, other municipalities, other counties, it may be pretty much just, this is the fire chief, and weather's part of the job for him, but that's not something that he thinks about in the morning, that this is what I really want to be thinking about. And
it does seem like, Harold, like the Southeast has really, kind of the tornado alleys shifted maybe to the South Central or whatever. And so I think this is great that we're doing this right now, because I feel like people are more, we're getting the threat more often in this part of the country.
There's also, I think, one of the other things we're starting to understand that the Southeast poses some challenges, and they come part from the weather. That one of the things, when we look in the plains, one of the things that characterizes weather in the plains is a really strong annual cycle. I know that around here, second half of April through the early part of June, that's when my tornado threat is. And outside of that time, it's not very big. We also have a really strong diurnal cycle. I know that my primary threat is, 4 to 9 o'clock at night, and that, or the late afternoon, early evening. We don't get very much stuff overnight. That's not true in the Southeast. The diurnal cycle and the annual cycle are very weak, and tornadoes literally can happen any time of the day or night, any time of the year. They also have, one of the things that characterizes, anybody who's chased will know this, one of the things that really is different about the Southeast is rural population density. If you look sort of Alabama, Mississippi, and east, the rural population densities over most of the state is 10 people per square kilometer. You come out here to western Oklahoma and Kansas, and it's less than 1. So you put the same tornado into those regions, even if it doesn't hit a town, there are a lot of people in the path, and there's a lot higher fraction of mobile home population, and so all those things combine to make tornadoes in the Southeast particularly dangerous.
So is the research like sorry, Dana. Go ahead.
Oh, it just seemed like we did a story on weather.com about cool season tornadoes, and those were on the uptick.
Yeah.
And what is now what we consider Dixie Alley and not Tornado Alley.
Right. I think there's some pretty good evidence that we're seeing an increase in the Southeast. Now there's some technical issues with how we look at the data. Is this changing in our quality of our reports that we didn't have years ago? One of the things about if you look at Oklahoma and Kansas, when the predecessor of the National Severe Storms Lab came out here in the mid-1950s, they did a field project every spring. We had a lot of awareness of weather occurring, and so we probably were doing a better job of reporting tornadoes out here in the 50s than we were any other place in the country. And
really?
You get into the South, because we had. I mean, we were flying planes around thunderstorms with tornadoes back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how big of an effect, or if there is even an effect, of we've got of different parts of the country changing the quality of their reports at different times. That's a small caveat, but there's some other evidence from the environments that suggest that probably the cool season threat is increasing in the Southeast. But it's hard to quantify at this point, just because we don't have. I mean, everything we do with tornadoes, our records aren't long enough. Man, could you get me 10 more years? I'd be really happy. Well, how about 10 more? And so that's what we're always looking for.
Yeah.
And, question about one of your research papers you did about tornado variability. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was really fascinating that you found since the 70s, maybe talk a little bit about this. Sure. Since the 70s, you found that the actual maybe annual occurrence hasn't really changed, but the number of tornadoes per day might have changed. So maybe less days the same days overall, but more in a certain amount of days.
Yeah. If what appears to be our best reporting and sort of consistent over time is our tornado F1 and greater tornadoes. F0 is where all the report inflation has taken place, and it turns out actually when we brought in the Fujita scale in the mid to late 1970s, they went back and they retrospectively rated the tornadoes earlier than that, and it looks like they overrated the intensity for like F2 and above. But F1 and above looks to be relatively consistently reported, and that's about 500 F1 and greater tornadoes a year is what occur in the United States right now. In the early 1970s, we averaged about 150 days per year with at least one somewhere in the country. That number is now down below 100. Okay. But the number of big days, the number of days with a lot of tornadoes have changed. Mm-hmm. And so back in the 70s, there was roughly one day every other year that had 30 or more F1 and greater tornadoes on it. And now that number is about 2 to 3 per year. And the big days have gotten bigger, but there are fewer days overall, and it works out that we end up with about 500 per year on average overall. And without that number's been there's a slight downward trend of like, I think it's 5 tornadoes over the 40-year period. That's close enough to zero to call it zero. But the number of days has gone from 150 to less than 100.
Yeah, some more extreme events. Yeah. Okay, I thought that was cool. Yeah.
All right, Harold, tell our listeners, viewers, how can they follow you or find you on social media?
Well, on Twitter, I'm HeBrooks87, HeBrooks 87, and that's the only thing you can really follow me on. I do Facebook, but that's pretty friendly.
Is that because there were 86 people before you with that?
No, it is not. My wife and I got married in 1987. So that's
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And you'll see if you go in there, you'll in addition to weather, you'll see things about competitive middle school math that I help my wife coach at her school.
Nice.
And you'll probably see some volleyball stuff. So you'll see my non-work hobbies will show up in there as well as weather. And I'll probably ramp up the weather a little bit here as we get into the spring.
Well, and do this. Tell us what's on your T-shirt. Share that.
My shirt is actually I borrowed this shirt from my wife. This is I Love Public Education. This is one of the shirts that she's gotten to wear as part of the activities that are going on currently in Oklahoma, and trying to figure out what we could do to help improve funding for public education in the state of Oklahoma.
Perfect. All right. Well, hey guys, it is time. Since you just got done talking about our Lightning Round Tour T-shirt, it is time for the Lightning Round, which is our game show of brilliant questions, arguable, for our guest. And we always invite everybody to play along, including you. So tonight, we're playing a version of Don't Forget the Lyrics. We're just calling it Don't Forget the Quote. So don't say, oh, shoot, because I got a feeling you're going to mop this up, Mr. Brooks.
Okay.
I don't perform always well under pressure.
There's no pressure. It's a big prize.
I have discovered that you are a hobbyist of medieval European history. Is that correct?
This is true.
All
I'm
right,
currently listening to a book about the three Edwards, the three Edward plantagenet kings of England.
As
Oh, he's gonna kill it.
Sounds, yeah, as interesting as that sounds.
Hey, I learned this week about a gentleman named Thomas Blanket, the guy who first wove blankets, and they're named for it. That was
Right.
Oh, no way. That was a
He's got
person's
this.
name?
Yes, Thomas
No
Blanket.
way.
So there you go. So
Wow.
if you listen to our podcast for anything, you listen because you find out Thomas Blanket and what he discovered and all that. So anyway, Harold, we're going to be playing Don't Forget the Quote, and we're going to be talking a little Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And what we're going to do, I'm going to give you a quote. You got to fill in the blank. And if you don't fill in the blank, I'm going to turn it over to the freaks, and they get to try and fill in the blank, and we'll see who wins at the end. Sound good?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I don't know if the freaks are familiar with Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but we'll find out. My guess is you're going to mop this up. So here we go. Quote number 1. Fill in the blank. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of
Elderberries.
Yeah.
elderberry.
Bam!
Yeah.
He's got this.
That is
Win.
correct. All right. Quote number 2. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen?
African swallow.
I'm going to give it to you. It's
Yeah,
actually
swallow.
just swallow.
Yeah, swallow.
But
Yeah.
you did ask
Sorry.
later.
I'm
sorry.
sure Harold's right, Phil. Just give
Was
it.
it European or African? But I will
Yeah,
give you.
yeah,
It is a
that's
swallow.
true.
Good
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. Laden or unladen.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So 2 for 2. Here we go. Question. Quote number 3. The knights who say blank.
Knee.
That's correct.
Thank God he's getting these because I don't know any of
Nicky,
them.
Nicky.
I only knew that one.
Yeah, I would give you that. I'd probably give you 2 points for that one, Harold, if you'd picked that second one. All right. Quote number 4 out of 10. It's just a flesh.
Wound.
Whoa, that's an easier one.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Quote number 5. You must now cut down the tallest tree in the forest with
A shrubbery.
Oh,
No, a herring.
oh, you just. I'm going to
Herring,
turn it over to the freaks. They
Herring.
get to
Sorry,
guess.
herring.
They get to guess. Freaks. What's the answer?
What he said,
A
Harry.
herring.
Yeah, Aaron.
Herring. I'm going to give that to the freaks. You gave it.
Yeah.
That was just pity.
All right. All right.
That was pity from
Thanks,
us.
Harold.
You're welcome.
Very good. So here you gave him a point. That's all right. That happens in soccer. It happens in volleyball sometimes, right?
Yeah. That's
know,
what the coach.
I'll-
That's what coaches
Out of
tell me.
bounds. It was spiked and out of bounds.
I will say this, Harold. One of the things I was going to do is I was going to look up like famous volleyball players or do something on volleyball, but all I could think of was like Karch Karai and Steve Timmons, and that was about as far as I got with famous volleyball players that at least I knew. All right, quote number 6. What are you going to do? Blank on me? What are you going to do? Blank
I know. Bleed.
Bingo. Bleed.
Yeah.
What are you gonna
Oh,
do?
wow.
Impressive.
All right, number 7. You've got 2 empty halves of blank, and you're banging them together.
Coconuts.
Yeah.
Coconuts.
Oh,
Famous horse
I want to
scene.
watch this movie now. Oh my
Oh, it's
god.
awesome.
Number 8. If she weighed same as a duck, she's made of
Wood.
wood. You got it correct.
Yep.
Oh my
If she's made
God.
of wood,
She's
she
made of
floats.
wood.
She
She's
floats. She's a witch.
Yeah.
Burn her! Burn her! All right. Number 9. Look, that blank's got a vicious streak a mile wide. It's a killer.
Rabbit.
Rabbit.
Yes.
The rabbit of Carabanog. Yes.
God, I
Oh my
told you that
God.
was-
Do
Dina,
that
have
one.
you
All
not
right.
seen this movie?
Like years ago, and I can't
Watch
remember
it-
any
you
of
gotta
it.
Watch it again. These are all.
I'll send you my DVD. All right, number 10. Who are you who can summon fire without flint or tinder? There are some who call me blank.
Tim
I'll
the
repeat it.
Enchanter.
Yes, it
That
is
Merlin.
Tim.
Yeah,
You're
Tim the
correct.
Enchanter,
You're
yeah,
correct. Tim.
Nice.
There are
Wow.
some
Oh my
who call
gosh.
me
Wow.
Tim. Very good. All right. Great job.
Wow.
Great job. You got it.
Wow.
9 out of 10.
Wait a minute, I have one more.
Okay, go.
No.
Okay, number 11. Bring out your
dead.
Dead.
Bring out your dead.
I'm not dead
Bring
yet.
out your dead. I'm not dead yet.
Not dead yet. Actually, I feel like I could get up and start walking around. You know? Quiet. No. All right. Well done. Thanks. Thanks.
All right, Harold.
Welcome.
Good job.
You know, I knew you would do well. I didn't realize you would do that well. And when you told me you had the holy hand grenade in your bookshelf, then I thought, he's gonna nail it.
I actually have.
Clean up.
I actually have a disclaimer slide on some talks that contains a large part of the dialogue from the movie.
I want to listen to that. All right. So, hey, we're going to go ahead and take a short break. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you'll get to hear the latest edition of the Titan U Minute with Chris Sanner. But stay right here. We'll be back to discuss if the National Weather Service should be getting their feet into social media, internet, TV streaming, and other media. All right, welcome back. You know, for the most part, the National Weather Service, they've kind of stayed away from producing any kinds of forecast or storm reporting video on TV or streaming. However, they've certainly gotten more involved in creating social media posts and website enhancements. I guess the question we want to talk about is, with this kind of dipping of the toes in media approach that they have, should the National Weather Service, should they go all in, and should they start producing video, and should they start streaming storm reports and warning reports and forecasts, or should they get out of it, let TV and other private companies do the communication with the public, or should they kind of stay where they're at right now, which is kind of in the middle? What do you guys think they should be doing? And I'm actually going to start with Dina. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was already talking. I'm just going to get in there. I mean, communication, the more communication you have, the better. I mean, for anything, the more you communicate, the better. That said, I would not like to lose my job being with the Weather Channel's weather.com and doing all their digital weather and things. But I do enjoy when I see like National Weather Service offices do videos, or, you know, the more they communicate like on NWS chat or Twitter, or make themselves available, because sometimes there's even information after I dig, I can't find it, and I will chat them or tweet them, and they're very helpful in giving me the information I need. And I love when they tweet videos or Facebook videos, because those are pretty much public domain that we can use too on weather.com. So that said, I love that they jump in, and I hope they do more. Just not so much I'm out of a job. That's pretty much what I say.
Dina. I agree. And if you think about it, I mean, be realistic. People are not looking at the television as much as they used to. They're just not. So anyway, they're on different platforms, whatever. So they should hit every platform. I agree. And if they're always there, then before, you'd have to go to the TV, turn it on, have to wait for the meteorologist to come on. Sometimes some stations don't let the weather people on right away. You know, so to me, it's a win-win situation. Get them out there, let them do what they got to do, let them stream, you know, be live, whatever. I think you have to do it. You have to. That's today.
Who do we think is like their target audience? Who do we think like they're trying to communicate? Because I think that's an important point. Because like if I were to go and show, you know, Joe Schmo off the street, you know, the SPC report, he would have no idea what we're talking about.
No.
So I think a very important point that needs to be figured out is who exactly the audience is that, you know, the National Weather Service wants to communicate to. Because I think there could be a lot of value in almost doing like a briefing to like TV forecasters or people that work at the Weather Channel, so that really they're all on the same page. I think there could be a lot of value in that.
Mm-hmm.
I do like their little videos. Some of them do. Like, you know, you could read the SPC Outlook and, you know, what they think is the biggest. Is it hail? Is it large hail, damaging winds? Or is there a bigger tornado threat? Or is it 2% tornado threat? So I would love to hear more from them. Like I said, the more communication, the better. You know, but it is, you know, when you think about them, you think really it's more science heavy, which is not the public. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're the science heavier side, and then they kind of at least for now. And then, we kind of like, I don't want to be a jerk here, but dumb it down and present it in an easier way.
Yeah.
You're laughing, but you know what I mean, right?
I'm curious to see, Harold, what is working? What are you guys doing? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me put my official hat on and to take it off, because I as NOAA, we have to walk a pretty careful line with how we do some things, and I'm going to basically give you my opinion. I have no idea if anybody in NOAA else agrees with me on any of this, and part of it is that there's some real challenges for weather service as I see it, and perhaps some opportunities. There are offices right now that I think are very effective at doing sort of the sort of 10 a.m. to noon. Let's do here's the weather story of the day for big days, be it winter weather, be it severe weather, that they'll talk about. Here's what we think is going to happen. Here's the uncertainties, and that primary audience is typically what they think of as their core partners, emergency managers, broadcasters, to where they can do in effect, they're trying to answer a set of questions that they know they're going to get from 30 or 40 different high-end users, and let's do it one time and have it set up to where you can see it if you weren't on right at the right moment, and that usually those are most of the offices I see that while there's some technical content, it's at a low enough level that most people can look at it. Like if I talk to people at a school, I'll tell them, hey, you ought to look at that, because that'll give you some idea of what's happening. And if I tell you what's going to happen, I'm pretty much going to have watched that and just translate it into words that you understand. But go ahead and give that a shot, and you can look at it in case I'm not available or not around. I think one of the things that's when we get down to the shorter time frames, and we start talking about for tornadoes, say the warning time frame, that gets to be a lot more problematic, except perhaps on the NWS chat kind of a venue, because there's not a weather service office in the country that isn't essentially very close to being short-staffed. And so how many people can you dedicate to maintaining all of those streams, and what do you do when today we're short? And yesterday, hey, we had plenty of people yesterday. We had somebody yesterday who could do this, who could dedicate to this, and today, we're one person short. So that's the first thing that goes, because we need somebody putting warnings out.
Well, I don't think not only that, Harold, but the fact that are there people on staff at each WFO that really have the skills to report that information, and communicate with the public?
Right.
And certainly the National Weather Service is not in a position to start hiring that many more people to make sure there's one of those in each office.
And one of the things is that our friends in the TV community, their primary job is to communicate. And they know how to tell stories. They know how to communicate information in a way that they think that they believe is understood, and that a lot of viewers trust that person for good reasons or bad reasons. The TV people who come into their houses on a regular basis they view them as friends. The number of people I know that they'll see somebody like that out on the street, and they almost feel like they know them already, even though they've never met them in their life.
Yeah, but fewer people are watching that, though.
Oh, fewer people are watching, but then again,
is there an opportunity there?
Well, but then they're also doing things in various other media ways. Like they're doing their own Facebook video, they're doing their own Twitter feeds in ways, so that there may be fewer people watching, but they're also watching them in other formats. One of the problems is the Weather Service. There are some people who are really good at the storytelling. There are other people, frankly, that aren't so good at it.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, well, if you think about why I do the job I do as opposed to doing the job that you do, is part of it is, I can tell stories, but I don't want to do that all the time. And so I don't have some of the structure, some of the background to actually do that as well. And I guarantee you there aren't enough people to cover every shift of a weather service office that are really good at it. And if you start having people who aren't good at it doing it, that's a bad, hey, TV, you got a bad reporter, they don't last very long, right?
No.
So I think that's one of the things. We also, we're still learning a lot about even just regular social media stuff. We did an experiment. It actually turned out to be my PhD student. Now, back when she was an undergraduate, we did a project on looking at how Twitter messages spread with weather, and things that got retweeted a lot, things that seemed to be, and we found that things that were retweeted came from trusted sources. So lots of weather service stuff gets retweeted, lots of TV station stuff gets retweeted. Organizations that people have some interaction with. But we also found that there were some, as we all have seen, things that like, we forgot to include the time. So we're retweeting the location. There's a tornado at 114th and Western in Moore, Oklahoma. Well, that actually was an hour ago.
Yeah.
That tornado's not there anymore. You're okay if you live 5 miles east of there now. And I think that's one of the things that we haven't really figured out. And I don't think that the Weather Service, what's the right way to sort of structure, if you think of Twitter as a language, how do we put the subject, verb, predicate together in a way that the information is contained? Should it be the thing? So tornado, time, location, or should it be some other ordering of things that make sure that when they get, if someone says something, they don't chop off important information, or that it also gets the information out that you want. We have today we had a tornado drill in the National Weather Center. This is such an exciting event. But it didn't get, but the information, I actually was told a minute before the drill that it was about to happen, because somebody I was meeting with who knew that the drill was coming said, well, in a minute we're gone. So I said, okay, so we'll go down. And even with us, it took them 15 seconds to say the word tornado. They come on, we ding ding, this is an emergency notification.
Yeah.
You should be taking action. Tornado drill. And you go, because if it's active shooter, I hide in my office. If it's a fire, I'm running out of the building as fast as I can. If it's tornado, I'm supposed to be going downstairs to the basement. And they took 15 seconds before they hit the word tornado.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was not a very effective bit of communication. And we can't do that in our building. So,
oh my God.
Think about it, that's something that, building message discipline of how do you actually frame, because since we don't know what the best way to do it is, building a system that actually uses those best practices, we don't have any idea what the best practices are. And then how do we work with our partners? There are a lot of places where there are a lot of places where Weather Service and TV station or other local media, other trusted users have really good relationships. Some places that's not true. If I can trust that when we if a Weather Service person turns that message over to the media, by the time it gets translated, is it the same message? Years ago, there was about 5 years ago, one of the most effective messages that ever went out from a National Weather Service office was a tornado warning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taylor Swift retweeted it.
Wow.
All of a sudden, a couple 100,000 people have seen this. There's a tornado warning in Nashville. I don't know who the Taylor Swift is in Oklahoma City or in Atlanta or someplace like that you could get. I imagine right now if Oklahoma City, if they could get Russell Westbrook to retweet every major weather announcement, that might actually make an impact.
Yeah.
But who is that person in that local municipality? How do you get them to actually do it?
Yeah.
And do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
let them hate Taylor Swift if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, right.
Just think about the money. Like if you even break it down just to money, I mean, the government or the National Weather Service or any of that, everybody's running on fumes. It seems like everybody needs more people. And then you think about, okay, so I look at my weather.com group and how many people we have there and how many on-camera people we have there to convey the message, how many people we have looking for information or damage reports or power outages, and then like even more meteorologists like myself who are trying to draw like forecast graphics, and there's so many people that go into it. There's no way one group can do it. I mean, I don't think, and do it. I mean, people, I think there's so many people that are so good at what they do specifically. You know, I don't think I could step into your position and do that, even a fraction of what you could do it.
Right.
You know, but then, yeah.
And I think one of the things we always talk about is consistent messaging. And, there are times that people think that means identical messaging. And that's not the same thing. We want messages that are at least consistent with each other. And that may mean, you've got pretty graphics to show somebody. Okay, well, so it doesn't say the same thing as the words I said, or my crude graphics say, or you may be able to say something that, that we have somebody communicates, say, with the local schools. Well, you don't necessarily give the same message to that school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon as you would at 8 o'clock in the evening. They've got a whole different, if they've had an evening activity going on, it's a whole different kind of people there. And so that the message may be consistent, but it doesn't necessarily have to be identical out of every source.
Mm-hmm. But I do think what comes out of any kind of government office, whether it's the Severe Storms Lab or National Weather Service or SPC or whatever, I think people do take that as, I think there's nobody who does not take it credible.
Right. Yeah. And I've had things where, in effect, there are times when I have friends that I now know, and this puts at times a little pressure on me. If there's a major weather event going on where I have friends, especially severe weather event, they kind of expect me to say something.
Yeah.
And I know that there are times when I have posted things from SPC that I'm basically regurgitating exactly what they said. Maybe with a little bit of a different, I'll change a verb.
Yeah.
But that, and I will see my friends repost it or do something else with it or share it, and they'll be telling their people, you should listen to this because this is my friend who knows what he's talking about. Right. And it's like, wow, yeah, baby, but I'm also pretty much I'm actually using publicly available information, but that notion of the trusted source is a big deal. That I know. For the local TV stations around here, I know their styles. So I know when I see a message on one of the stations, it's not going to sound exactly the same, but the basic heart of the message is still there. And I can interpret, the different stations appropriately. If I go to another place, if I'm out of town, I'm in, say, Indianapolis, I don't know anybody working in Indianapolis anymore. And so I listen to them and I go, okay, what is that? The fact that, I know that James Spann, if you see the suspenders and the sleeves rolled up, boy, it's bad.
Yeah.
I know that much if I go to Birmingham. But that, I don't know what the guy I don't know if I go to Columbus, I don't know what little cues I should be looking for in Columbus.
Yeah.
So.
But there's, you touched on an important piece because I think that people think meteorologists know what's going on everywhere across the country at every moment, that we're a database in our brain. Like I may not be looking at a certain part of the country. I might be looking at something else. And that's where my focus has been. So I do look to a trusted source, to the National Weather Service or something. And then I can kind of take their information that I haven't had time to look at personally, and then kind of, relay that information because one person can't, especially if it's an active weather day, you could have a storm in the Pacific Northwest. You could have a tornado going on in Texas. And you could have a snowstorm going on yet again in the Northeast.
Yeah. And that's, I try to watch out where my family is. That's sort of the bare minimum. But, and then other things where I know I have friends that are in places where I know something really, really big is happening, and it'll be, you really ought to pay attention today. But, there may be a day when, I'm doing something like, that I'm just not around today. They don't know that I'm not around today. Yeah. They just know that I'm not saying anything.
It's not in your database brain.
Or I may not be in a place where
everybody asks me stuff, even on vacation. I'm like, I don't know.
But I may not be in a place where I actually can communicate. I've been out of the country. Sometimes, and, I got to tell you, if I'm in Croatia, what's happening in Minnesota is not really high on my radar, and I may not be even have ever. Well, let me rephrase that. It wasn't on my radar until now, and then after tonight, I'll be doing Minnesota all the time.
Yeah.
What I would always get is, so tell me the real deal. You know, it's like, you know, they'll watch their local person. They say, Kim, what's really going on? It's like, well, I could maybe tell you that the chances are maybe not as high, you know. So really, I feel like they really want to know what chance is it really going to happen? You know, they really want to know that more than anything.
Is it hyped or is it really going to happen?
Right. And I think, and one of the things is that one of the big things about the trusted source idea is that, you know, in effect, you feel like somebody's holding your hand through the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, boy, and they're going, hey, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or they're going to go, you know, today you really, you cleaned out the shelter.
Yeah.
Or maybe today's not a real good day to go on the golf course.
Yeah.
You know, because you can have a problem and you may be an hour away from getting shelter.
Yep.
And I think that's
that hurricane really gonna hit us?
Yeah.
Should I evacuate?
And I think that's the tornado world. One of the problems we run into, as I said earlier, is, you know, the time frame issue is a real problem. You know, if you take they issue an evacuation order for you for a hurricane. You wait 10 minutes to think, okay, are we really doing this? Yeah, you're further back in line in traffic.
Yeah.
Or you wait 10 minutes in a tornado situation, and you know you might not have an option left.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll tell you what. We always ask our listeners, viewers, let us know what you guys think. Email us at questions@stormfrontfreaks.com, or go ahead and find us on Twitter or Facebook. Tag us your thoughts so that we can share that on our next show. We're going to go ahead and take our final break. You can refill your drink, and when we come back, it's time to share our amazing WX resources and see who else gets added to our legendary weather fools. All right, well, I think that just about does it for this episode of Stormfront Freaks Podcast. We want to thank you for listening and watching. Before I go ahead and share the secret of our next guest, if you enjoy our show, please do us a favor and leave us a great review on your podcast app. Don't forget to subscribe to the show by hitting your podcast app subscribe button. You know, it works just like a magazine or a newspaper subscription. All it does is it assures the latest show gets delivered right to your podcast inbox the moment that we release it. Hey, special thanks to our guest, Harold Brooks. Harold, thanks for joining us tonight. You're a legend. Great conversation, and thanks for sticking around.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Harold. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Very good. And our next episode is in 2 weeks. We'll be recording on April 19th. Now listen to this, everybody. We're going to be with CEO of the Extreme Weather Experience, Eric Solna, which what this is, it's a first ever immersive weather edutainment attraction concept. So this is a concept that he has to create. It's a combination, I would say, of a weather science museum and an amusement park, all in one facility where you can go on rides, you can immerse yourself in these 3D weather experiences, learn more about weather. It's like a science museum dedicated strictly to weather and how it works, with great rides and interactive things. So this is a great thing that he's working on. We're going to be able to talk to him about it, what the concept is, and how he's going to get that off the ground. So that'll be our next show. If you'd like to watch the recording, it'll be live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central on April 19th. Go ahead and check us out on our YouTube channel. Just search YouTube and search Stormfront Freaks. So I'm going to say this for MJ and Dina and Kim and Brady and Harold, or what was it, Howard?
Howard.
Fred. Shut up, Fred.
Fred is going to signal the all clear, and we'll catch you guys next time. Have a good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. To subscribe and be notified when new episodes of our bi-weekly show are available, you can go to Apple Podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, or your favorite podcast app and search for Stormfront Freaks. If you would like to contact us with questions or make comments about the show, shoot us an email to questions@stormfrontfreaks.com or follow us on Twitter @StormfrontFreak. We'd love to hear from you. For show notes, additional information about this episode, as well as past and upcoming shows, videos, photos, and more, visit our website at stormfrontfreaks.com. While you're there, check out the interactive radar provided by our friends at zoomradar.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/stormfrontfreaks. Join us next time and tell a friend about the Stormfront Freaks podcast.
They're coming up with, there was a tweet from Helicity Designs. This is right near the beginning of the show. And they said, even my cat loves Stormfront Freaks. Oddly, he was licking Brady's face, though.
How appropriate.
Oh, my God. No way.
So, Brady, you have that stigma about you that
Nice.
can even be visualized and felt.
Have they followed up on how the cat's doing now?
Yeah.
Good question.
Flourishing.
Oh,
You know what? If you got a brand, stick to it. That's all. That's what it's
If you got
about.
a brand.